Good afternoon. Ooh, a little loud. You guys hear me okay? Too loud? Yes. I had already read each of your bios, but to hear them again and to look you in the eye, it's really moving. I was going to offer you 3 challenges today, but I really wish we could be listening to you instead. You should be issuing us challenges. What is your vision for our future? What do you see as possible? What are the limits? How can we go beyond those limits? What do you want to see this country, this world be? People talked about the students in Parkland, Florida. Regardless of where you stand on that issue, they've been able to move the needle forward on the most entrenched issue in this country in such a short time. You're not our future, you're now. You are the now. You have energy, you have intelligence, you have tools, you have social media, your voice can be heard anywhere in the world. Don't wait, just do it. And you're already doing it, that's what's so amazing. I'm so grateful to the Fairfax Peace Awards for doing this kind of thing. I know one community in Maryland has adopted it because of you, but we need this across the country. I'm so going to bring this to Northern California. This is really important. This is amplifying the voices of peace, amplifying the voices of reason. Really, and the more we shine a light on things, the more that becomes our reality, the more it becomes visible. Thank you for taking leadership on that. And in your schools, in your communities, truly you're visionaries. That was my #1 challenge, was to be a visionary, which obviously you've already checked that off the box. You are visionaries. What is so amazing about visionaries today is that they really set the standard for social change. There's an amazing study out of Stanford by Everett Rogers, who started studying social change in the 60s, about how does it happen. He looked at everything from the adoption of the fax machine to hybrid corn in Iowa to peace. He even included peace. He was part of several peace movements. And what he found in every single circumstance is that social change follows an S curve. At the very beginning are the visionaries. He called them innovators, but I call them visionaries. They're the first to see what's possible. They're the first to have a new vision, a new idea. That's you guys. 2% of the population have that vision of what's possible. Next, it's the early adopters. That's 5% of the population. Once you've reached the early adopters, the idea becomes embedded in that community, in society. Between 5 and 20% of the population, once they accept that new idea that you've put out there, the change is unstoppable. It could be 5.5%, could be 19%, but once it hits that tipping point, it shoots up on the S curve and it reaches every single one in the population. So we have this idea that we have to convince everyone to come on our side. You at least have to convince 90% of the people to adopt your new idea, to adopt your vision. Or we think at least half, right? It's only 5% potentially. 5 to 20% is all you have to do in your schools, in your communities, and that change reaches everyone. The late adopters are at the very end, and what he found in the study is we don't need to waste our time with the late adopters because they sap your energy, they sap your momentum, and they'll come around eventually. So just focus on those people who actually get what you're talking about, where their idea resonates with them. They see the potential. You're putting the idea out there. People, even if it's a small group who's joining forces with you, it resonates with them. They see the power of it. Get that momentum building with that 5 to 20%, and the late adopters will come around eventually. It's really powerful. What he also found was the late adopters tended to be those in positions of influence and positions of power. So really, change isn't going to come from the corridors of, here I am in Washington talking about this, having left Washington, but change will start at the grassroots. It really is about one person at a time making that difference. And I know a couple people already talked about that. And I think what we're trying to say is, I found this quote a few days ago that was so perfect for what we're talking about from the Dalai Lama. Can't go wrong with the Dalai Lama, he knows what he's talking about. Although attempting to bring about world peace through the internal transformation of individuals is difficult, it is the only way. Wherever I go, I express this, and I am encouraged that people from many different walks of life receive it well. Peace must first be developed within an individual. And I believe that love, compassion, and altruism are the fundamental basis for peace. Once these qualities are developed within an individual, he or she is then able to create an atmosphere of peace and harmony. This atmosphere can be expanded and extended from the individual to his family, from the family to the community, and eventually to the whole world. Boom. That is so powerful. It's really amazing. It matters what each one of you is doing. In your homes, in your families, in your communities, in the world. That is how world peace comes about. With my work with Euphrates, our work is also about transformation. And it's about the transformation from seeing people as others into brothers. And our motto is turn the other into a brother. And this is kind of funny. It's the first time I'd actually had my brother in the room when I was giving a talk. But he and I share another brother, and this is why this motto has really especially meaning for me. And in order to turn the other into a brother, you really need to see the other as a brother, to really see that. And so growing up, we had a brother who had special needs. He had severe autism, couldn't talk, looked different, and all my life, people treated him differently. They made fun of him. Bullied him. Some family members even were violent towards him at times, and they really saw him as an other. But if you got past the exterior, you got to know a most beautiful person, so innocent and pure and childlike and unconditionally loving. Even that family member he loved him so much, just such a sweet, precious soul. And so where other people saw an other, I literally saw my brother. And so that really has resonance for me. And then when I was 12 years old, I spent a year in France. My mom, who's also here today, shipped me off to France. I must have been a horrible child. But I spent a year in France. I didn't speak a word of the language. I didn't know this family. 12 years old. And all of a sudden, I felt like the other. When you're totally isolated, you stick out like a sore thumb, you can't communicate. Has anyone ever felt like that? It's not a fun feeling to be the other. And that was my first taste of what that felt like, to be othered, to feel so different. So then, in some of my early career experiences, I was in the most othering of circumstances you can imagine, which is a war zone, where the two sides not only view each other as the other, but they're trying to destroy each other. Literally, it is enemy against enemy. And as a counterinsurgency analyst in Al-Anbar province, that was my area of responsibility in 2003 and 2004. That took me into very near the front lines. For example, in Fallujah, I was just outside of Fallujah on the Marine base there in 2004. And the only civilian woman on base. And you can't imagine how, sleeping in a tent with 6 guys and the constant incoming mortars, outgoing mortars, the deafening noise, the state of chaos and confusion, but most importantly, the feeling of despair and hopelessness that I felt, that I so just wanted to fix this situation. Seeing our guys coming back wounded from the field, feeling that incredible darkness and heaviness and despair. And then a little bit later, I was staying with Special Forces in a town not far away, and it was right along the Euphrates River. And I'd gone for a run one evening, and I went up on the roof to cool down, and I took in the scene that was before me, and it was such a contrast to what I had just experienced. I was right along the banks of the river, and I could hear, not bombs going off, no noise. I couldn't hear any noise except for the swaying of the reeds and the tinkling of the water going by. It was just this incredible stillness and peace. And I sort of let that wash over me for a moment, and then I realized, wow, this river, just a few miles downstream, flows right through the middle of Fallujah, right through the middle of that war zone. Those two scenes, this incredible river flowing, this life-giving force of peace and beauty and stillness was right in the middle of the death and destruction and the bombs going off. And this thought came to me, which will you choose? Which picture will you choose? They're happening in the same space. And I didn't know what that meant, but I said to myself, I choose the river. It was so obviously the more important and more powerful force. No matter how many bombs went off in Fallujah, it did not affect the flow of that river, affect the trajectory and the power of that river. The river was more powerful than the bombs, than the war. So I said I'd choose the river, and I didn't know what that would result, but it ended up changing my entire life. And I went back to my boss in Baghdad and said, I'm through with counterinsurgency and counterterrorism. I want to do something positive to help the Iraqis to build up Iraq. And so I switched to the embassy and started working very closely with Prime Minister and the first Iraqi parliament. And that's how I first learned about Islam. He was a very devout Shia Muslim, led trips to the Hajj, and he taught me that in Islam there are two doors to the person, just like there are two doors to the house. There's the outer door, and then there's the inner door to get into the, you don't just march into someone's bedroom. You first go in the outer door, and then you go inside the inner door. And he said the outer door is the heart, and the inner door is the mind. You have to first connect, reach someone through the heart, and only then can you appeal to their mind, to their logic and reason. Isn't that just such a beautiful model for relationships? Always the heart first, and then the mind. It's always stuck with me. And I wanted to share one other little thing, going back to the idea that it's really just change that happens in these individual circumstances. Well, it was a totally different job, of course, than counterinsurgency my second year there. But one of the best things I did was I started to organize ultimate frisbee games between Iraqis and Americans. So I'm a huge ultimate frisbee person, the only girl out there, and we would play with the Marines and Army, and then some of the Iraqis would play in a neighboring field. And we never talked to each other. So, well, can't we just, promote some interaction or get to know each other? I'm going to invite them to and organize a tournament so we can all play. And I also recruited some Iraqis from outside the Green Zone to come in. And so we all came in. I organized this huge tournament, and you can imagine it was so tense and so awkward. And they're lining up, Iraqis, Americans. I said, no, we have to mix up the teams, mix up all the teams, and of course they couldn't communicate. We're trying to teach them the rules of the game. And so it was just really silent at first, but we started playing. And as we got into the game, it was so interesting to see people's reactions change. Little by little, I saw a thumbs up here, good pass, or a pat on the back. By the end of the tournament, they were hugging. They were best buds, taking photos together. Some of the Iraqis had been playing barefoot, and a couple of Marines ran over to the PX, bought them shoes, and it was amazing. We kept this going for several months until the Iraqis started getting death threats from insurgents for playing with Americans. So we had to stop. But till this day, some of those soldiers and Marines said that was the highlight of their time in Iraq. Really the only time they got to interact as human beings and just relax and really connect. So that was a powerful testament to how just a little thing can make a big difference. So that was my second challenge, to see the other as a brother. And my last challenge, and I really need your help in this because it's the question I'm in and a quandary I have, and I don't understand how we can fix it. And that is, how do we incentivize peace? How do we make peace profitable? Why is war a trillion-dollar industry? And peace builders are paupers. We say we want world peace. We say we value that. Why aren't we investing in that? How can we, why are we playing violent video games for hours a day? Young people, how do we make it cool? How do we incentivize peace? How do we value it, invest it, and really make it so that there are peace awards all around the country? So that peace is a trillion-dollar industry. That is another of my challenges for you. How do we do that? Will you please put your thinking caps on that and help me figure this one out? I don't see any nodding heads. Good. So those are my 3 challenges. Thank you. It is a question. It's so interesting. How do we really turn it around? If we say we want that, why don't we value it and invest in it? So those are my 3 challenges. The first one was to be a visionary, check. The second is to see the other as a brother in whatever circumstance you're in, whoever the other is to you, and we all have an other, or many. To see that other as a brother. And the third is to make peace profitable. Thank you so much.